Okay, hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Oasis 13. It's your host, Imani. All right, and I have a guest up here with me today. It is Gambo from Mentality Radio. I thoroughly enjoyed their podcast. Um, so Gambo, could you introduce yourself, your podcast, what y'all talk about?
Yeah, Imani, thank you so much for having me on the show. I appreciate it. Mentality is a podcast where we kind of talk about men's issues and talk about societal things that are going on from a man's perspective, and
Mm-hmm.
we talk about spirituality, societal issues, finance, money, just regular stuff in life that I feel like people aren't typically very honest about. We trying to kind of give our perspective as like the bulls on the block, and people so far have been showing us love. So thank you for also having us on here, having me on here at least.
Yes, thank you for coming. So I definitely wanted to get you up here to get a man's perspective on this topic that I feel like is has been coming up. So the topic is the nice guy, nice girl complex and why confidence always wins. Okay, so we see that I feel like there's many stories or many stories of like, the girl, she gets the nice guy and then she plays him, she cheat on him, or I feel like even for guys, he gets with a nice girl and then he cheating around with, another woman. And I want to get your perspective of why you think that is. Why is it like that?
I mean, I think it's a very broad topic, and I think it's a very factual topic, guys, because I think that does really happen. I'm gonna focus like mainly real quick on the men's piece, like because
Okay.
I think on a woman's piece, I feel like I don't know if I totally agree with that, and I think the issue to that is slightly is a different underlying issue.
So
But
you
when
think
it
the differences between why men and women may choose someone other than a nice guy or nice girl is different?
slightly, I think it depends.
Okay, go ahead.
But I think typically it's slightly different. I think when it comes to the nice guy mentality, unfortunately, I think a lot of nice dudes is like it's like you're doing too much, and
Mm.
I think when you're doing too much, it's like we kind of talk about it on the podcast. Like it's like, for example, a high value company or a high value person doesn't have to tell you how high
Hold
value.
on. Sorry, not to,
You good? You
what's
good?
high value? What does that mean?
Yeah. So anything like so in terms of a man, right? We could say a high value man is somebody who is desirable, and whether someone desires that man could be based on a number of different things, but consistently amongst women it's typically around, I'll say maybe about three things. I'll say maybe how do you make her feel, I think is probably the most poignant thing, right? And
Mm-hmm.
can you protect, do they feel protected when they're around you? Another thing was like, can you take care of me? So whether that's like financially or whatever it is, I would say those three realms, like how you make somebody feel, how how well they feel protected whenever they're around you, and also if you could take care of them or not. I think for a woman, all those things are like very necessary to kind of build like a strong connection with somebody. And so I feel like a lot of times the nice guy complexity isn't, that issue isn't coming into play in the last two things that I mentioned. So it's not the finance or the protecting part. It doesn't necessarily have to be those two things, but it typically comes in the way you make her feel. If you're doing too much, you just say yes, or like, it's not even necessarily saying like yes, you're too available. Like they don't feel like they want you because if it feel like you groveling over them. And so with that being said, like how do other women also view you? If you're not somebody that's desirable, why should I desire you? So that nice guy complex is messed. It could seem messed up for the nice guy, but the reality of it is just like female nature. It's like that's kind of how women are like really hardwired to like kind of be in society, and it's not malicious or nothing like that. It's just nature, and I guess we can kind of delve into like the historical um reasoning for it. I mean, I'm not an anthropologist or anything like that, or a humanitarian or anything like that, but
Mm-hmm.
I, there, like, there are clear reasons from an evolutionary standpoint why that could be the case. And same thing for men, which we could delve into later. But I mean, what are your thoughts?
So, for my perspective, so I agree with you as far as like, so you said women want someone who is desirable. Um, you don't want somebody who's always available because it's, and it's not like on a base. It's because if that is the case, then there's a reason for that. So if it's like, if you're always available, what are you doing? Like, do you have anything? What are you doing with your life? You shouldn't be always available. That's just, and then it's like, if you're the type of man who can provide and who is confident and who respects himself, first of all, I feel like respecting and loving yourself is very important because there are just some things that you will not put up with, man or woman, if you respect or love yourself. So, from my perspective, I feel like nice guys don't win because if you're letting a woman walk over you, it's just like
I
respect
feel you.
yourself,
Yeah,
man. Love yourself. Like know that you bring a lot to the table. And if you don't know that, why am I here? Like,
absolutely agreed. I'm gonna play devil's advocate real quick though. So, what if the guy was like, you know, the reason why I'm always available is because you are my priority.
no.
Exactly. And so I think sometimes that's a misconception because if you look at like a lot of men and the way we're raised, like since childhood, we're taught that like you're supposed to just like kind of like just submit yourself to that woman, right? Oh, like you buy her flowers. I'm not saying these things are negative, don't get me wrong, like context, right? But
Hmm.
you supposed to just be the one who's supposed to court her and constantly like seek her, her attention. And you see like even if you watch movies, like dudes doing all these crazy things, jumping through all these hoops and hurdles just to like try to get the girl's attention. But then you doing too much because it's like, yes, you're making her a priority, but subsequently what you're not understanding is that that itself is what's like making you like not get her because she's the priority. Like what you said is like love yourself. If you
Hmm.
love yourself and you're the priority and you put other things in front of you as opposed to that woman, I guarantee you the results is going to be a lot different.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, I can see what you're saying. They always make it seem like, the woman is the prize and you
Exactly.
should work to get her and you have to woo her. And you should, but at
Should
the
you?
same
Okay.
time, you should. Now don't it's a thin line.
I'm curious to hear this then, Lon.
It's a thin line. Like you need to make her feel wanted. Like don't just like, oh, I'm too good for you, like girl bad. No, that's not attractive either. Like not arrogance is not attractive either.
Right.
However, I feel like okay, I feel like once you once you tap into like who you are and what your purpose is in life, there wouldn't have to be like lessons on what you're supposed to do because it would just be like that. I don't feel like you should make it seem like you're not interested or you are interested. I feel like it would just be like that. You know what I'm saying? Like you are interested in her, right? However, you have other things that you need to do as well. So it's not like you're trying to make it seem like, "Oh, I got better things to do." No, you actually I mean, you have things to do, like you have am I making sense? Let me make sure I'm making
You
sense.
making clear sense. I'm picking up everything you point down.
Okay, so
So
yes.
yeah, I mean, like
Go
touch
ahead.
on that. Like, no, absolutely. And I think I'm gonna go back to like the point of contention we quickly had, which was should you woo her, right? But I'm gonna put
Mhm.
that on the back burner for now. But to what you just said, absolutely. You shouldn't have to like pretend to be like, oh, I don't even like you like that. Because then you
Mhm.
just a boy playing childish games. Like it should be really like you mentioned, keyword purpose. Like you really should be on your purpose doing whatever it is that you like to do, you love to do. That's like what when you wake up, you got to do that thing, and like it don't matter who's around. That's not gonna stop you. I feel like every man should have principles and rules
Mhm.
that you live on. Like you should be
Mhm.
10 toes, like doing what you're supposed to do, and that shouldn't change regardless of whoever is telling you what, whoever's saying, "Oh, let's watch a movie." Like it's cool. I'm not saying ignore the person, but that has
Mhm.
to be your priority, right? So
Mhm.
absolutely understand that. Don't pretend, because women could definitely sense that too. Like I feel like if you
Right.
try to pretend, like people are going, like, come on, like you playing games. I know you are.
Right.
That's not going to fly. Like, but going back to the should you woo her conversation, the only reason why I ask if you should woo her or not is I think the better question would be how you woo her, because if you're again jumping through all these hoops and hurdles trying to like get her attention, attract her, it's
Mhm.
not going to happen. But if we go back to what we were just talking about, if you're on your purpose, if you're
Mhm.
doing what you're supposed to be doing, and you're happy just by you're content just by doing what you do by yourself or by your friends, whatever,
Mhm.
that in and of itself makes you stand out to her. If other things align, right? Because she could be like,
Mhm.
oh man, this dude is like he's doing what he's supposed to be doing, like you know what I mean, and that could be attractive in and of itself. But my point is when
Exactly.
we say warm people, I think a lot of men are under the impression that you supposed to go out and you supposed to do all the things that you think she might like, or things that you heard somebody say she might like, or things you've seen in the movie that you think she might like. So now you're going to do all this extra stuff, and then that's not really who you are. That's not really even your character. But now you breaking character to try to like you doing too much. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? So when I ask, should you woo her? That's really the question should be, how do you woo her? It's really just about being
Mm.
yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's it. Just be yourself. And exactly. I don't feel like I can add anything else to that. Just be yourself because women do pick up on like we be looking at everything. How you do everything. And it's just like we might not say nothing, but we'll definitely be like, okay, noted.
Right.
Mm-mm. you
Right.
know? So it's just focus on yourself and find something that you love. And then I promise you, like when you do that, women will be like, who who is this man? Like,
Right.
you know? So but we also need to touch on the well, before we go no, I want to go there. So we also need to touch on the nice girl complex because I want to know. I feel like from my perspective, from a woman, I feel like just like we just talked about, some men try too hard because they're trying not to be themselves. And then, oh, also, confidence again is very necessary. So, and that just goes into loving yourself, you know? If you love yourself and you know that you know, like you got it and you working on yourself, then you need to be confident because no woman wants to be with the man who is like, "Oh, I don't know. Oh, I can't make a decision." Like, what? And then I want to bring this into it. So, we know how Prince is like. You know how Prince got like all the ladies back in the days, right? And he
Hmm.
was like wearing heels, like because he just didn't care, because he was just like it's just, like I feel like that's a good example because you know some women may say, okay, he's not my type, but he's still getting other women because he doesn't care, and that's really attractive. Like just being you is really attractive, you know.
Hmm. No, I mean I definitely agree. I think you like if you make being you cool, can't nobody do you better than you, right? So like
Mm-hmm.
if you're you, can't nobody really imitate you like you can imitate you. So I mean I definitely agree with that 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to the nice girls complex, if you want to call it that, I've never heard that before a day in my life. I want to know what you experience if you had that experience, if you know someone who's had that experience, like what do they say, like what, like how is that, like what is that like? I'm curious.
What I feel like, what I see is I feel like men go for the typical, like really nice, you know, um, how do I say it? Like really nice, like
Instagram model type chick, or like,
yeah,
okay.
like who don't really have an opinion. They're just like, okay, all right, okay. But then they get bored. And I feel like they cheat with a woman who's more who like what is the word? Who makes them work. What's the word I'm looking for? I can't. Who
It challenges you, who make you
yes,
think.
challenges
Okay.
them. Challenges them. That's what I mean. So I feel like that's what I see a lot. I feel like men will take that girl or be with that girl, but then they want the other, girl for other stuff. That's what I feel like.
I mean, I feel like as a guy, I would agree. I feel like submissiveness is like a trait that as a guy I love. Like I don't like when girls like, yeah, okay, like yeah. I mean, to a degree, it's attractive because like it's a portion of it screams femininity to me. It's like okay, like a man likes to feel dominant. Maybe not everybody, but typically, a man wants to
Mhm.
feel like he's leading or he's in charge.
Mhm.
Even though a woman is strong and it also could be dominant in different sectors, but like the way she might do it is through influence and like through different ways, right? But
Mhm.
from very first glance, the man definitely wants to be the leader. He wants to be the dominant figure. And so I feel like whenever you see, that's probably why you're seeing that. Those girls who are like, yeah, okay, soft spoken, very sweet, very, very chill. It's because it's attractive. It's like a girl who's like really submitting to your will. I know it sounds kind of fucked up, but like these are all, can we curse on air, by the way?
Yeah, yeah,
I bet. So it sounds like,
yeah.
sounds kind of fucked up, but like it really is the way it is, like for a lot of men. So that's
mm.
that. But I think
But then
you're right. You're right in the sense that we like to be challenged subtly. And when I say challenge, I don't mean a woman who has high masculine energy, right?
mm.
Because you
Now, how do you
go ahead.
what's high masculine energy?
So I would say a woman who has high masculine energy, and also it depends, right? Because there's levels to it. Depends on how masculine the dude is, and depends on how masculine the woman is. I believe that people are, I don't think anybody's 100% masculine or anyone's 100% feminine. I think there's a yin
Right,
and
right,
yang
right.
system. It's like percentages. So a dude might be like 80% masculine, 20% feminine. But
Mhm.
and then there might be a woman who's like, I don't know, 80% feminine, 20% masculine. But if you meet somebody and a dude is like 50% masculine, 50% feminine, but then you have a woman who's also like 60% masculine or like maybe 40% masculine, 60% feminine, like, or whatever the ratios might be. It might be a clash because now you have somebody kind of trying to fill that masculine role. And it's
Mhm.
difficult because like the man kind of wants that to fill that. And also the woman kind of wants that man to fill that role. So now you have like a clash. It's like, I like you supposed to be in this position, but like, no. You not doing it right. So I have to assume this position. And now what you start to
Mhm.
see is the woman start to assume the masculine position and the man
Mhm.
starts to assume the feminine position. But for a
Mhm.
lot of people, and not for everybody, because there is people have different preferences, but for a majority of people, I would say that becomes like a clash. And
Mhm.
so that becomes like somebody who you can't really get along with. So a woman with high masculine energy is somebody who would basically starts to like assume the masculine position in a relationship. And that could be
So
problematic.
that means she leads, basically?
You can
Like,
lead, but like you
explain to
lead
me.
overtly. Like you can lead overtly. You
Mhm.
can, like, for example, if you trying to like son your dude, you
Oh,
know what I'm
okay.
saying?
Mhm.
Or you just disrespect them. That's not necessarily masculine, but those are all things that can be considered as like
That's disrespectful.
exactly
I mean, it's just disrespectful,
right.
yeah. Um,
Does that make sense, or you need me to clarify that a little bit more?
yeah, keep talking.
All right, so like if a woman is masculine, right?
Mhm.
You just feel that. It's like it's just how you feel a man being feminine. Like you mentioned, I think one example you gave was like they're very indecisive about everything, right?
Mm.
That's not
Mhm.
necessarily them being feminine all the time, but that's you might attribute that to be a feminine trait, and you
Right.
might not like that. But that's how the
Mhm.
dude might see the women too. So you always want to argue with him. Like he asks you, "Can you do this for me, please?" And he asks nicely or whatever, "Can you do this for me?" And then there's always some sort of friction. It's
Mm.
like, you know what I mean? Like you have to be able to make your man feel like a man, just like he has to make you feel like a woman.
Right.
Like you say, he has to make you. You have to be felt like you want it.
Right. Yeah, I it just you're bringing up the fact that there's just like a lot of imbalance between us because between just, black men and women because a lot of women did feel like they had to presume the more masculine role because it's a lot of men out here who are not doing what they need to do, So the woman is just like, okay, I got it. But then, that messes her up because she don't want to be with him. She don't want to be with a dude who is like who can't provide, but then she can't. Mm, but then that messes her up because it's like if you have more masculine qualities, you're gonna attract a man who is more feminine. You know.
I don't know if that's necessarily true. If you're more masculine, you attract a dude who's more feminine. I just think the dating pool in which you're finding people in is going to be that there's more feminine dudes. And I feel like in today's society, that tends to be the case. And if you
You
look
feel
at
like
it,
it's more feminine dudes than masculine dudes
I
in
don't know
today's
if
day.
there's more, but there's definitely a higher percentage of feminine dudes now.
Mhm.
And I think if you even look within the black community, right?
Mhm.
Like you mentioned, you kind of touched on, it's like a lot of women would be like, all right, I got it.
Mhm.
And so that you mentioned that messes them up. Women, one, need to understand that like you need to make a dude feel like a man, even if he's going to mess up, and then still find that corrected path. You have to let him go through that mistake. That you hate, it's important. And unfortunately, some men don't really get to that point until like later in their lives, and it's a learning process. So it's really frustrating, and
Right.
that's what we call like the ride or die chick, right, or the bottom down chick. But if you
Oh, wait a minute. We got to come back to that.
you
Okay,
come
go
back to
ahead.
that, all right, but that's a different conversation. But if you look at a lot of our black communities, a lot of single
Mhm.
women are raising a lot of dudes, and
Mhm.
so there's really like a lack of a lot of father figures around in the household for them to even understand what it's like being a man. Like a woman can't
Right.
be a man. Like I don't care how hard you are, how many kids you got, or you a single mother and you working how many jobs, like you not a dude. Like it's just not
Mhm.
the case, right? And so you trying to fill in that position, you're trying to raise your kid as to like what you think a man should be, but you're looking at it from a feminine perspective. So
Mhm.
like the way you raising your dude is different. Like we just talked about all the things a woman might say she like X, Y, and Z,
Right, but you don't
but
actually want
really, like if that
it.
happened, you don't want that. Like you know what
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah.
So when you raising your kid like that, even
Yeah.
if you don't consciously think about it, subconsciously you teaching that to them. And so a
Mhm.
lot of these dudes are not having like a masculine figure or a masculine figure, someone masculine they could look up to in the sense of a true male. And so
Mhm.
we're seeing the feminization of men a lot. And we could talk about
Yeah.
like different ways that happens, but
Mhm.
it starts usually at the household level. And so now you have like in some cases it is good that we're learning as men, we're being less toxic, we're being more
Right.
understanding,
Right.
more in tune with emotions. That's all great. But
Right.
at the same token, we need to make sure that we don't overcorrect to the other side where we're becoming overly feminine. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely because it's getting disappointing.
Mm.
Because I understand, right? We have these movements. I got to talk with my hands. We have these movements, and it's the toxic masculinity and women, well, both, well, mostly women, are pointing out things of, oh, this is toxic, men shouldn't do this, do that. And you're right. There are things that, you know, men have done in the past that were not, um, you know, beneficial for the relationship. However, don't I just don't like the feminization of the men. Like I don't agree. Like you said, we don't need to go too far because now we just going the
Speak
whole
on it.
opposite
I want to hear
way.
it. Speak on it. Touch on it. What you got?
We just going the whole opposite way, and I'm not a fan. I'm not here for it. I'm really not. I mean, I prefer a more masculine man, you know, and I'm t- I don't know. I'm just tired of the whole toxic masculinity thing because I feel like the men who are presenting as masculine, you know, women are saying, okay, yeah, I want a guy like we said, we say these things. You know, I want a guy who is who listens to me, and like we watched the video, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So the video that I sent him, and it was this, I don't know what she was sounding like she was from Boston, or a white lady from Boston or whatever. And she was
Right.
like, you know, about a lot of women say, you know, I want a guy who listens to me and who does a lot of things for me and is always there for me, but then they end up cheating with the guy who is more masculine, who maybe is not texting them back or who maybe is ignoring them. And I disagreed a little bit with that with her because I feel like she took it like too far. Like, you don't want to do to disrespect you. But like
Right.
we said, you know, it's a thin line. So again, with the whole toxic masculinity thing, yes, there are things that were negative. However, don't tell all these men that they need to be feminine because some women don't like men like that. You know, like it's just don't go too far. And then so we can talk about like submission, you know. A lot of women, like you said, guys or more masculine men find that attractive. And a lot of women will say, well, why do I need to submit, or I shouldn't have to submit, you know, to a man. It should be a partnership, or um yeah, it should be a partnership. So, do you agree that masculine men want a woman to submit? And if so, what does that mean? What does submission actually mean? Because I think the definition gets really murky. And
It's a
when
great
people
question.
automatically hear that word, they're just like,
Yeah, I mean, I think 1,000%. Like a dude typically wants a woman to submit, and when we say submit, it's not like you. It's not like you throw away your entire life for the dude, but it's like you respect them. I think men operate a lot on respect for one. So like even and it kind of goes back to what I was saying. Even like for example, common example, right? Say you in a car
mm-hmm.
with a dude and he's driving and he make the wrong turn, right? A lot of women will probably feel like they need to like
So you can't tell him he made
no
a
no
wrong
no
turn?
let me finish. You can, but the way
Okay.
you do it is what matters. Like for a lot of men, they need to kind of go through the iterative process of like messing up and be like, oh, I messed up. But like the way you tell them is key. Like a lot of women will be like, why'd you make that left turn? You should have made it right. But it's like, nah, you could just be like, I thought it was a left turn. Like subtle differences is really, and I know it sounds ridiculous, but men are very, like, men can be sensitive. As much as we don't like to admit it, men can be very sensitive. Like, and a lot of men are very emotional today, especially a lot of black men. If you think
Mm-hmm.
about like dudes who grew up in the hood, like somebody step on your sneakers, you get sensitive, you get emotional. That really is emotion. Like whether you like the whether it's like aggressive emotion or it's still
Mm-hmm.
emotional. Like you're being moved off your center like that. So
Mm.
a lot of dudes are sensitive when it comes to that. So the way you correct a dude, but the way you try to tell him how to do something is very important because again, they need to feel like the leader. If he doesn't feel like he's capable, and maybe one time is cool. I'm not saying like a dude make a turn one time, you can't. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying if you constantly are nagging him about stuff, not cool. So submit. Going back to the point, submission is you recognizing him as being a man and him as being a leader in things that he's good at, right? And because I believe in any relationship, it don't matter whether it's a guy or a man or a woman, right? It's always going to be somebody who's better at doing something,
Right.
right? The man's not always going to be 100% better doing everything. That's crazy. Like just like the
Right.
woman not going to be like it's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But acknowledging that he's good at doing certain things and letting him assume the clear leadership position in that is key. And that's kind of what we mean by submission. Understanding that he is a man who needs respect, who needs to feel like he's a provider, a protector for you is key.
Mm-hmm.
Just like a woman needs to feel feminine, right? A woman will need to feel like you care for her, that she's able to like be there for you. She's able to nurture you. Like a lot of women, they care for that. Like, and so it's that feeling that you give that person in the way, the actions that you show them that lets them know that you care about those things. Does that
Mm-hmm.
make sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And I feel like everything is kind of going back to just, so I have three things that I feel like are very important, just for men and women. So it's discipline, respect, and loving yourself. So, you brought up of like, how a woman says things is very important. And, if you respect your man, the tone that you speak to him and will represent that, right? Like,
Exactly.
like if you don't respect him, then you're gonna be speaking to him any type of way. But if you respect him, there will, you're gonna, you got it, okay, you got it, babe. Like,
Exactly.
yeah. So it's just like if a guy is with a woman and she speaks to him like that, you can already tell. She don't even, And then loving yourself. So again, nobody, man or woman, should be in a relationship with somebody who doesn't respect them. Because if you are, then it's like, why? Like, you don't love yourself enough to be by yourself. And then discipline, which I feel like we haven't touched on that much, but I feel like it's very important. Well, I guess we kind of did a little bit because, we said you need to find your purpose. And with that, you have to have a lot of discipline. You have to stick with it. And I do want to bring this into cheating.
Oh boy, here we go. Let's do it.
So, like, we know there's always going to be somebody more attractive, somebody with a bigger butt, somebody with nicer abs, whatever.
Mhm.
However, if you, and I'm for, if whatever you like, right? So if you have agreed to be in a monogamous relationship with somebody, then that means you need to have enough discipline to discipline your little, sorry, to discipline your willy.
Okay.
Okay. So, what do you think about
Thoughts?
those three things?
Discipline for sure. I think we did touch on discipline. You have to have a drive. You have to live by principles as a man, as a human being. Honestly, you need to live
Mm-hmm.
by a code that you know is unbreakable for you. Like certain
Mm-hmm.
things just you're not gonna move off your ground, and these are things that define you and make you as a person. Like your word is all you have, really. Like in your integrity.
Exactly.
So
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, 100% agree with that. In terms of cheating, I think that can be attributed to discipline. So I think it depends on the way you look at it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you're going to disagree with me on this, but I am for the belief that just like women are typically going to look for the more masculine dude, or like, if you want to call him that, or
Mm-hmm.
someone who they find more attractive, which typically it would be someone who's a little more masculine, who stands out more to them. Alpha
Mm-hmm.
male, I believe, is the buzzword nowadays, right?
Mm-hmm.
But men, that's like women are hardwired to do that because, again, the evolutionary standpoint that we haven't really touched on yet is that women want to reproduce with the best genetics that they could find, with the best traits, the best attributes, the best everything. So if a
Well,
dude,
yeah, because women think about, well, no, I understand that not all women want to have children, right? But
right,
I feel like a lot of women think not just for ourselves, but we're thinking for the future. So when we're looking at a man, we're not just like, me with him, but how would he raise my kids? Like, how, if we have a disagreement, how is he going to discipline them? How if there's a big decision, is he going to make that decision, or am I gonna have to step? Like it's just everything, especially if you're thinking about, you know, raising a
Right.
family.
No, absolutely. And so you're right. And I think you laid it out really so well. Like it's women thing with the future, right? Is you're not thinking
Mm-hmm.
about the now, you're not thinking about just yourself. You're thinking about all the things that are gonna cascade down in the future. But the thing with men is men typically want to be able to spread their seed as wide as possible.
Oh
So
gosh.
that's true. I'm not like it's facts. Like you know what I'm saying? Like men want to have the best chance of reproducing their DNA. And again, not every man wants to have kids, but that attributes to different
Right.
things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So men want to one, a lot of men are conquerors. Like we want to feel like, and it's not everybody, but for the most part, like you want to feel like if there's a challenge or obstacle in front of you, you got that. Like you got over that. So if there's a chick who's like, you can't get me, okay, I got
Mm-hmm.
that. That's really
Mm-hmm.
realistic. And it sounds animalistic, but to some degree, we still follow certain rules of this animalistic nature, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one. And so when you look at the chances of survival of casting your seed as wide as possible, like that ends up being that you have to be with multiple different partners. And so a
Mm-hmm.
lot of that is almost like embedded within, I think, the genealogy of like how men function historically. And so I'm
Right.
not condoning cheating. I'm not saying cheating is right. I think it's whack. Like if you make that commitment to somebody,
Mm-hmm.
that discipline factor needs to be able to kick in. That's a code. That's a
Right.
clause that you should not break.
Right.
But if you didn't make that code and you're like, this is not what I want to do, and I just want to kind of do my thing, be honest about that too. And I
Right.
think a lot of men want to do that, but the way they want to do that, they're not doing it the right way, so they end up resulting in cheating, which is kind of whack because it's like you think doing that makes you masculine, but really you a sucker for doing that because you can't really keep it
Be
honest,
honest.
look somebody
Mm-hmm.
in the eyes and really tell them like, hey, that's how I really feel. So I
Mm-hmm.
think there's like two sides to it. It really comes down to communication and what you desire. And if you can't
Exactly.
communicate what you desire, then you shouldn't be playing with people's emotions at all.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, I'm not opposed to, if you choose to be in an alternate relationship, that's your business. Just be honest with whoever, that you want to have relationship with, because you never know. Somebody might be down for it, but you not gonna know unless you present that, when you first, you know, become
I mean,
in
I feel like you'll
relationship
know
with
though.
them.
You know. Like you don't have to
You
necessarily
can't
ask them. You know. I mean,
you
I think you
cannot
can.
assume stuff.
You cannot
You
assume, but you
cannot
can
assume stuff.
infer. I'm not saying assume. I'm saying inference. I'm not saying
From what?
okay. So I'm glad you asked. So if, say, for example, you with a dude, right, and
Mhm.
he always was talking about other women and how he wanted to bring other women in a relationship. As a woman, I guarantee you that's going to trigger something in your head. Like, does he try? Is he trying to like be with other people, or is he trying to? Is he really serious about this? Like, you're really like consider that. You're really question that. Now,
Mhm.
whether he comes up to you and tells you like, hey, this is what I want or not, that's a different thing. And that's where I think you and I are in agreement that he absolutely should disclose that
Mhm.
because that's whack if you don't. But
Mhm.
as the person, you can kind of infer that. Like, you might not know 100%, but especially a woman, y'all got that spidey sense. You know,
Right.
like you know what I mean. You kind of like have an idea of like, oh, so this is what he's trying to do. Oh, so this is what he wants. There's
Mhm.
definitely like inference that you can make, but you should, however, absolutely disclose. I'm not opposed to that.
Mhm. Hmm. Okay. Um, I want to go back to what you said about men wanting to spread their seed, and I, I, um, I don't disagree with that, but I guess we can take it into what we're talking about now is just disclosing information. So in the world that we're in now, um, that's just not viable for a lot of men. Like, even if you want to do that physically, you have to think about what the consequences, you know? So if you're not able to if you can't, first of all, let's just go back to again self love. If you can't even love yourself and respect yourself, how can
Absolutely.
you take care? Women are a lot, and we know that. Okay. So taking care of one woman is a lot. And then you want another woman, and then you want to have kids with these women, and you think you can handle that. Now, if you can, financially, mentally, spiritually, do that. But many men are just getting to the point where they're loving themselves. So before you think about doing that, first just love yourself first, and respect yourself. And then when you get one woman, see if you can even handle that, you know. So I'm not opposed to what you're saying, and I'm just saying don't just do things. Like even if you feel like you want to do that physically, just know it has consequences, because I know this isn't with our topic, but I feel like our parents' generation, they had kids without thinking about it, and it definitely affected us, a lot. So, we have to do better. So if you really don't think you can do that, if you really don't think you can honestly be there like that, then you need to have the discipline, to even if you feel physically you want to do that, think about, okay, can I actually, if something were to happen with this, could I actually, keep this up, you know? And also what you said about, I'm gonna say it for women too. So, we may be attracted to the man who is more masculine, but we do have to realize that so say you're with a guy and he was like that when y'all first got together, right? But something happened and maybe he's not the best version of himself at some point in your relationship. You know, we would also have to look at ourselves and have discipline as well and be there for him during that time. Like he's not always going to be able to be the one who's just, he's just not always going to, we grow and we go through things, and he's not always going to be the best version of himself. So at that point, you have to decide if you're going to stick it out, if you want to stick it out, or if you would just rather give it up.
No, absolutely. I think you said a lot of important things. I mean, I just want to clarify. I think when I mentioned about men wanting to like spread their DNA as wide as possible, like again, we need to be cognizant of the fact that because we've evolved a lot, it's not necessarily literal. It's just that these urges still like are within men. But you're absolutely right. Even if it's not literal and you go around having sex with a bunch of people, there's still consequences if you're not practicing safe sex or whatever, right? There's still consequences even for you spiritually, for your
Mhm.
mental. Like if you can't handle that, like there's still consequences. But just to kind of understand how people help women, and I think understand like why is that? Sometimes like women think it's them. It's not necessarily you. It's probably them. Like it could be you, but 9 times out of 10 it's probably really them, right?
Mhm.
So just to clarify that. But in terms of women too, we do see that too. Like you mentioned, like for example, in the video that woman was kind of going a little too on the other side, a little too far, but
Mhm.
she's being real. Like you might say you like the nice guy who's like sweet to you, bring you flowers and listen to you all the time, but you end up cheating on him with the dude from the block who's out here shooting people or pistol whipping people. Like I'm not saying that's usually like a younger or a hood
Right.
mentality, right? But
Mhm.
you see that because you think that's like what you're attracted to. But there's consequences with that too. So I think a good summation of what I would tell people is really stay in your lane, man. Stay in your lane. Like you really should be dating people who are within your bracket. And what I mean when I say by that is
Right.
like
What you mean? What you mean?
when you dating people or you talking to people who are within your bracket, people who are like on your level. Like you should not be. It's and that's really difficult to do because people always want to exceed. You always want what's best out there, and that's the
Mhm.
thing. Women want what's best out there. Men want what's best out there. But you really got to be in your lane because you can't handle that. Like you gonna mess
Mm.
around, end up in a different lane that you're not meant for. That you can't handle that. You're not built for that.
Mm.
You can't handle that. You catch my drift?
I get what you're saying as far as like, so we got to know that everything comes with things that you may not have accounted for. So if you get in with, let's do it on both sides. So if you're getting with the most attractive woman or the most attractive male, there are going to be things that come with that. So
Exactly.
the woman, um, you ain't the only dude in her DMs. She might have
Exactly.
some, stuff going on, and for the man too. And it's just, so you got to know what you getting yourself into,
Absolutely.
And I do agree that you have to be very self-aware. And I almost want to take this into, I'm sorry, we going a lot, but I want to take this into um valuing other things besides physicality. So, because I feel like when we're younger, or if you have a younger mindset, that may be what you're looking for, right? The most attractive person physically. And yes, we all want to be attracted to whoever we're dating. I'm not saying you don't want to be attracted, but I'm saying if you going to the girl who's like the most beautiful, or the guy who is like these model looking people, right? It's damn, I forgot my point. What I'm saying is we need to look at like
The
all
whole picture.
aspects.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
You can't
Right.
just
Right.
look
Right.
off the looks and just feel like that's going to be enough. You need to be able to look at their personality. You be able to look at, how, like, for a lot of women, how they're going to be in the future. I think you kind of laid that out really well in the past when you said, if you have kids, do they even want kids? How they going to treat the kids? Are they going to be the ones making the decisions? How do you feel
Mm-hmm.
about that? It has to be a whole picture. Absolutely agree with that. But even then, you still need to stay in your lane. I'm being dead serious.
I'm trying to figure, what do you mean when you say that?
Because even then, you need to stay in your lane. Staying in your lane meaning someone who's compatible for you. And that goes back to the being a nice guy conversation. Stop
Okay, come on. All
chasing
right. Yeah.
people who are not necessarily for you, because she probably
Mm-hmm.
not meant for you. So stop chasing
Mm-hmm.
tail.
Mm-hmm.
Stop doing it. That's
Mm-hmm.
not in your lane, bro. Like, if it's in your lane, it's gonna come. If it's
Mm.
not, just focus on you. Do what you gotta do. And stop worrying about what you think she might want you to do. That's gonna be an L for you regardless.
I agree. I agree. I like how you said, okay, because I was a little confused what you meant by saying your lane, but I understand what
Yeah.
you're saying now. So basically, both men and women need to stop trying to get with mm, they need to stop trying to go for what they think they want and just be who they are, and then that will bring them the people who in their lane.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. Okay, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Um so just to bring it all together, cuz again I do feel like there's an imbalance in our community specifically.
Okay.
So what would you recommend? Go ahead and start with the men to kind of balance us out in, in our partnerships.
What would men need to do to balance out partnerships?
Mhm.
Are we talking about a civil union, like people who are in a relationship, like a committed relationship, or what are we talking
Right, but well, yeah, relationships. Let's just
about? Okay.
keep it at relationships.
I think for men to balance out a relationship, you need to understand yourself, one, first and foremost. And obviously, you need to understand the person that you're with. Understanding is the very beginning. And the second step is to be able to communicate. And I feel like these are very commonly said. But for men, understanding who you are lets you know what principles you're going to be living by, what code you abide by, what you like, what you don't like, what you should pursue, what you should not pursue. Understanding who you're with lets you know how compatible that is for you or not. And being
Mhm.
able to communicate is going to be able to help bridge the gap when you feel like there's a rift. or you feel like there's room for improvement, right? So those things are very, very key. Also, very importantly, you need to make sure that you are in your masculine and keeping your woman in her feminine. If you have that type of relationship, I'm assuming this for straight people
Mhm.
in a monogamous relationship.
Mhm.
Keep your woman in her feminine. Keep yourself in your masculine. Make her feel loved. Again, make sure the three things I always tell dudes is one, she has to like the way she feels when you around. Even when your name is mentioned, it has to be special. She has to feel good about that. She has to feel like, yeah, I got something good, right? But that doesn't mean that you try to do that. That's just gonna come with real genuine
Right.
self, like of you
Mhm.
being you, right? And that
Mhm.
compatibility thereof. Two, make her feel protected, like make her feel secure in herself, right? And that can mean a lot of different things, but make her feel good, make her feel protected. And the third thing is you need to be a provider in the sense that, like, if you're in a relationship, I stress if you're in a relationship and if she's not a greedy person. And there's like reciprocation. Like, I know people don't believe in reciprocation in relationships, but I believe there is. However we do it, that unconditional love stuff, I personally don't believe in it, but that's a different conversation. Be a provider as someone who can assume a leadership position within that. Someone who, even if you don't make the most or anything like that, you still can find other ways to provide for her. And that needs to be key. So I think those are the three things. And I think when it comes to women, just like we mentioned, understanding who you are, understanding who you're with, and communicating that. Men work a lot with respect. So just try to respect them and make sure that you're like submitted to them. And when we say submit to them, that doesn't mean that you getting like pistol whipped or you getting like backhanded. You okay with that? Oh, no, 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 no. Like, that just means that you are showing respect. You are
Mhm.
making him feel like a man, just like he should make you feel like a woman. And you are catering to him and nurturing him. And if there's something corrective that you feel like needs to be addressed, the way that you do it is through influence, not overt correction. It needs to be, y'all know how women do. You correct them through, like, you plant the seed and you plant the idea in his head. You know what I mean? Like, you don't just do it overtly. So there needs to be that too. And I feel like for yourself, just make sure that like that you are loving yourself and that that person is also loving you. Don't ever confuse abuse with like submission.
Mhm.
Don't allow yourself to be, because if you get allow yourself to get treated like that disrespectfully, then that person don't
You're not
respect
loving
you.
yourself, right?
Exactly. You're not
Yep.
loving yourself and they're not really respecting you either.
Mhm.
So there needs to be a balance between that. But just make sure that you're submitting yourself in a healthy manner and that you're also respecting and then you're understanding both of yourselves and you're communicating. I think those are the things that I will kind of lay out for people.
That was good. I appreciate that. Um, do I want to add to that? I think I don't. I
You
think
don't?
that was good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Looks like we have a close.
Um yeah, that was good. I like that. Because you basically said everything. No, I do want to add to it. I'm lying.
Oh, go for it.
So I do want to speak to the men. Okay. Um Again, I do want to bring confidence back into it, which is goes with loving yourself, and just being who you are. And once you love yourself and know, who you are, you'll be confident in that and you're not going to care about what anybody has to say about that. Um, and then also, what you said is have some mm, ways of like, have some rules for your life, have some discipline for your life, because that will take you very far. Like, if you don't accept certain things, if you make sure that you do certain things and you carry yourself a certain way, that will take you very far, not just in relationships, but in everything. And yeah, just do what you do. And again, women do want to feel protected and provided for, so that is important. And yeah, for women, love yourself, because nobody's going to I mean, you shouldn't allow any man to disrespect you. And just don't allow any man to disrespect you. Don't allow anyone to disrespect you. And if that is going on, to just, kick rocks, to them, because you got to know that, again, you also are this is night, okay? And if he don't see that, then you got to go, okay? And yeah, I did have one last question because I don't think you answered it. So in the beginning, you said you think that men and women may have the nice guy, nice girl, they think about it differently or for different reasons. And you never really said if guy, I think you said guys prefer nice girls, whereas we already discussed women don't prefer nice guys.
Absolutely. I think men, if you look at the natural like order of men, we typically like submissive women, like I mentioned. So typically that comes like what that looks like for a lot of men is like she's sweet, she's very like kind and sweet and all of that, like very mushy and all of that.
But can you be too much of that?
You could be too
Can
much
you
of a
be too
clinger.
much?
Absolutely, you can cling too much. Nobody likes a clinger. That's whack. No woman likes a clinger. You look whack. No
Mhm.
man likes a clinger. You look whack.
Right.
Like there's a fine, but with women, you can be more clingy than a man can be more clingy. If that makes any sense, just because of our
Yeah.
nature.
Mhm.
Like a woman clinging on to a man shows that she really cares about him to a degree. Like men will like that. It shows that you care about him, you love him, and that you are willing to do whatever for him. Like a lot of men will like that. But a man doing that is like, no, no, like, ew, why you on me all the time? It could go like that for women too, but very rarely because unless you're just overdoing it to a degree where it's like gross. Like if I text you, you expect me to text you back within a certain couple of minutes. Like, hey, that's like, come on. Like I have a life to
Mhm.
live and you have a life to live. And we both gotta
Mhm.
live separate lives bettering each other. And I think a lot of times people
Mhm.
don't understand that. So when I say a lot of men like nice women or like nice girls, it's true.
Right.
I think men can like women outside of any context. Like men, I feel like love more unconditionally, which I know I don't really believe in unconditional love, but if there's someone who does it more closely, it's men. Men love like dogs. Like if a guy like you, it could just be that he like you just for you, and it's like he don't even know why he likes you. It's not because of like, well, I mean, we kind of broke it down to categories like, oh, he can like it, like, she likes you because of the way you make her feel, because of the financial aspect, or because of the protective aspect. With men,
Mhm.
not necessarily. The onset of it is going to be attraction.
Right.
Make no, make
Right.
no, like,
I'm like,
don't
cause
even
what you
disagree with that.
talking
Like,
about?
yeah, like the dude has to like find you attractive at the onset.
Mhm.
But like a girl who's friend zone with a guy, like a guy who puts a girl in a friend zone, it's more likely to end up with that girl than a girl with a guy in her friend zone. That guy has no shot. But the girl in the guy's friend zone,
Really?
absolutely has more of a shot. Because if he sees your character, after a while, men again love like dogs. Like he really would just like love you just because of you. You might not be the prettiest. You might not have money. They don't care. Like men don't care about that.
Mhm.
Men like don't care if you got bread or like if you we do care how you look just at the physical onset of attraction. But after a while,
Mhm.
after a dude sees a girl's personality and he like or whatever it is that he might like, I don't know, some dudes like girls who like into the same things that they like. So if he like video games and you like video games, that's probably enough for him to like you. Or if you
That's
like,
stupid.
it's very stupid and men are very stupid. Like the things that we like is very generic. It's there's really no pattern to it. It's just like we just like you because we like you. You know what I'm saying? It's simple, but it's complicated because we got to make it complicated.
Yeah. It's so funny having discussions with guys because it's like, what are y'all talking about? Is
Right, right.
it like sometimes I understand, but sometimes I'm just like, our minds work so differently
Yeah.
because, like you said, okay, so you said women. when you said women will most likely not be with the guy who she friend zones, definitely, because a woman, again, like I said, we look at everything and automatically we know how you act. Because I feel like a woman would more likely be with a man who she doesn't find as attractive,
Absolutely.
but if she, if you present certain characteristics, we definitely look at characteristics. I feel like more than physical, you know. More than, I didn't say we don't care about physical. We want you to look good too.
Right.
However, if okay, so let's say you got two guys.
Uh-huh.
You got an option between two guys. And you got this really attractive, like, ooh, he got abs and he
Mm-hmm.
and he built and all of
Mm-hmm.
that. He's physically the set type of guy. But he's stupid. And he like and he don't know how to make decisions and he just be like, I don't know, what do you want to do? Like, I'm not sure, like, and every time it's just, like he don't know how to make decisions and he just lets you do whatever. And then you got a man who maybe is not as attractive physically, you know, but he got his shit together and he know what he doing and he doing shit. You like, yeah, I like him
Yeah, no
more.
contest. But it goes both
Yeah.
ways. Believe it or not, it goes both ways. So you could have the Instagram model chick who got the nice body, Coca-Cola shape, all of that, but she dumb, and you can't even hold a conversation with her. She just dumb.
Mhm.
But then you have a
Mhm.
chick who's like maybe not your type, or you don't really find her that attractive, but she's cool and
Mhm.
she's into the things that you're into, and you guys hit it off, and you guys get along. The
Mhm.
dude's probably gonna pick her over the girl. Now he's still going to mess with the girl who's dumb. Don't get me wrong,
So you
but
know
who he
what?
who he's going to end up with? Most likely the girl who he's into.
Mm, okay. So what I was trying to get um you to say when I was asking you about the nice guy girl thing was, is it basically a balance? You know,
In
is
terms of
everybody
what?
really looking for a balance? Like women, we don't want a guy who's too masculine or too feminine. You gotta have, a little bit more masculine, right? For most women, everybody's different,
Mm-hmm.
but for most women, you want a little bit more masculine, but also a little bit feminine. Um, but for guys, I don't know, because it seems like you're making it seem like for guys, just straight feminine is good. Like she don't gotta make no decisions. She she don't gotta have no opinion or nothing. She just, as if she's just
No, you gotta have opinions. Oh no, don't not have opinions. That's whack. But you
okay. So what are you
like okay.
saying?
So clarification. It depends on the person that you're dealing with, and it kind of goes back to the example that I gave based on two couples, right? One might be 60% masculine, one might be 40% feminine, and the other might be the exact opposite, or whatever have you. It has to be whoever you're with. You need to understand how you are. So if you're somebody who's very masculine, you're probably gonna prefer a girl who's very feminine.
Mm-hmm.
If you're someone who's like a little 50-50, you probably going with somebody who's a little 50-50. Does that make sense? Or if you're somebody who's very, very feminine, you're probably gonna want someone who's very, very masculine. Like it's typically gonna be like that. It's typically gonna be, they say opposites attract. Can be true. In this case, yes, that's what I'm getting at. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? So it really boils down to that.
Yeah. Thank you for the clarification. Oh, one more question before we go.
Sure.
So, we said we set up the two types of guys or girls, and basically we would choose maybe somebody who maybe doesn't have everything, but more qualities or whatever for each of us. However, would that be considered settling?
Repeat the question one more time. I want to make sure I'm
Okay.
catching this.
So we set up this two situations of maybe you have a guy who is better in one area or a guy who's better in a different area, and then both for same for women. um how do we decipher? Okay, let me ask it in a different way. So, how do we decipher the difference between settling and understanding that everybody is not perfect? So, at some point, you're going to have to make a decision. You know what I mean?
I think it's funny because you answered your own question in your questioning. It is settling. You settle. That's what it
Mm,
boils down to. Unless you have a
hmm.
factory where you could build your own man or build your own chick, you settling. Because it's really hard to find. I really don't think you're gonna find someone who's 100% perfect at everything that you want in every scenario. They're gonna be perfect the way you want it to be. It's not gonna happen. But that's
Right.
why compatibility is a huge thing.
Hmm.
You tend hopefully want to settle for somebody you feel like is close enough.
Hmm.
And that's why there's always going to be problems because it's not going to be perfect. But yes, you settle. And people don't like to call it that. They like to call it, oh, my soulmate. Nah, you settle. Like you settle with somebody who was close enough. But that's real. And we don't like to say that because it sounds
Yeah.
better that like the person that you met in
This
that
person
same
was
town.
made for me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not the
Yeah.
case.
Yeah. That's just unrealistic. Like romantic love. If what you were saying, nah, you wasn't saying it. You were saying something about unconditional love. But romantic love is not reality, you know? And so, yeah, we can't we be looking for perfect and it just ain't there. It's just
Stay in your
not.
lane. You gotta stay in your lane. You know what I'm saying? Like you maybe you found someone who you think is uberly perfect, but they don't want you. What you gonna do? It's facts. Like, and that's probably not even like realistic. Cause like even at the onset, you might think they perfect at the onset, but then you get to know them.
Right.
They're not what you thought.
Exactly. Exactly.
Stay in your lane and be
Yeah.
realistic. You gonna settle. That's if you want to settle. Some men don't want to settle, and that's okay too. As long as you're communicating that you being honest.
Mhm.
But you gotta stay
Mhm.
in your lane.
Okay. All right. And that is it for this episode. Thank you so much, Mr. Gambo from Mentality Radio. Okay. Any last words?
Nah, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on the show. Uh, it's a pleasure watching you grow, and it's a pleasure watching you do this and see the creative process. Really cool. I'm sure I'll have you on the show one of these days. We'll have a conversation
Yeah, y'all
about.
got to get back up there.
Yeah, I got you. But we'll have you on the show, and it'll be an interesting conversation. But thank you for having us, and thank you for having me, and if you guys want to check out my show, you can check us out at Mentality Podcast, Mentality Radio on Instagram, mentalityradio.com. Um, yeah, we still putting out episodes, so check us out. And thank you, Imani, for having us here. So appreciate it.
Yes, and y'all definitely got to check them out because I am a fan and I'm not just saying that. Okay, I actually like their topics, all right? And both of their perspectives. I only have one of them here with me today, but it's two guys on their podcast. Um and yeah, so thank y'all for listening to this episode. Remember that your refuge is in your self-healing. So please heal yourself to find your refuge. All right? Thank you. Peace.